actually likes and reads, has fun
I
with.
want to interrupt them.
That's pretty
Right.
Now
So-
you need the
Ladies.
gavel.
Yeah. All right.
Got to use the gavel.
Welcome to the Westborough Advisory Finance Committee, meeting number 5. Pursuant to Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2025, an act extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency, this meeting will be conducted in person and via remote means in accordance with applicable law. This means that members of the public body, as well as members of the public, may access this meeting in person or via virtual means. In-person attendance will be at Memorial Hall inside of Town Hall at 34 West Main Street, and it is possible that all members of the public body may attend remotely, with in-person attendance consisting of members of the public. This meeting may be accessed remotely via the Zoom link in the posted agenda. When required by law or allowed by the chair, persons wishing to provide public comment or otherwise participate in the meeting may do so by in-person attendance or accessing the meeting remotely, as previously noted. Additionally, the meeting will be broadcast live in real time via Verizon Channel 28 and Charter Channel 192, or via Westborough TV's online platforms at westboroughTV.org and youtube.com/WestboroughTV.
Hey, Jane, we can't see Memorial Hall.
You can't see us at all?
No. We can see the participants on the Zoom remote.
I'll let them know. Okay.
All right, we're working on it.
Wait.
Right. While we are working on that, I think we can start off with public comment.
Thank you, Joanne Aramini, 7 Meadow Road. Before starting, I just want to say thank you for including open forum as part of your committee meeting. It's really appreciated. Not every committee in town does that, nor do they allow speaking during the meeting. So it kind of squelches public input, so really appreciate you guys doing that. I've come before this board before to discuss the cost and the lack of transparency surrounding the B-Well project. And since then, I'm sorry to say that the lack of transparency continues and the project continues to move forward. I'm here to speak about Article number 6, at least it's number 6 right now, at the special town meeting, which is asking voters for a transfer of free cash in the amount of $61,105, which is to be combined with an additional $38,895 remaining dollars from prior articles to provide matching funds for a Mass Trails grant that has yet to be awarded to the town. I am fully aware that the article can be filed despite the grant not being awarded yet. However, this project grant was filed in the dead of night. There was no transparency around the filing of this application at all. The select board were not even aware of it. And because of this, the select board have said twice at 2 different meetings that before they would accept this grant, it would be brought to their meeting and they would discuss it. So I don't know why the voters would be asked to spend money before this discussion happens at the select board meeting. Overall, the town has spent about $823,000 on B-Walt. And of this total, the town has spent $400,000 of local tax money over the past 10 years, which has not resulted in a trail that's been paid by the town. Recently, the town put together a transportation project that was supposed to identify all of the transportation projects in town, supposed to prioritize them, and look at the financial resources for completing them. We didn't get that. We got a regurgitation of all the current transportation projects, plus new ones. There was no prioritization. There was no discussion of specific dollars. They say they're going to do that in the future. So again, why are we asking the town voters to give more money before this prioritization happens? Why are we going to spend money on a trail that might not be prioritized? And when is the public going to have a chance to speak about what they want for prioritization? There are so many problems with B-Walt, and I can talk for hours and hours on them. And I'm just going to highlight some of the big ones. I don't know if you know or not, but the creator of the trail, Don Byrne, he recently wrote an 11-page document. He not only developed the trail, but he wrote the feasibility study. And this document was sent to the Planning Board, the Select Board, and the Active Transportation and Safety Committee. And in it, he outlined all of the problems with BWALT. And he essentially suggested that the town put a pause on the project. And he's promising a couple of other documents that's going to outline even more problems about the BWALT. I don't know if you all are aware of it or not. I did send the document that Don wrote to Walter, and I'm hoping that he shared it. And I think that after you read this, you will just see that it doesn't make sense to ask the voters to spend more good money after bad money. Not sure you're aware that there's a huge funding gap in Section 1 with the Otis Street intersection. BWALT connects to the Otis Street intersection. There's about a $4 million funding gap. Don't know where that money's coming from, haven't heard a peep about it. Again, shouldn't this be resolved before we ask the voters for more money? There's also a major wetland issue in Section 2 of the BWALT that runs through the sewer plant. Why are we spending money, asking voters for more money, when we don't even know if this trail is going to be able to go through the treatment plant? The wetland issue may derail the whole trail. There's money left over from other articles. Why isn't that money being spent to figure out whether that's a problem or not? To top it off, nobody yet has been designated as the one to manage this project. Everybody is pointing fingers at other people. There's nobody that's watching the dollars or coordinating any of it. And this project is complicated, it's interdepartmental, and it is extremely expensive. I don't know why voters should be allocating more good money towards it when we don't even know who's watching over it. And as I said, I can talk for hours on BWALT problems, but I'm going to stop right there. And I'm just asking the Finance Committee to just consider what I've said. Please read Dawn's article and see it for yourself. And I think after you read that, I think you'll agree that common sense says that it's just not a fiscally responsible thing to do, to continue spending money on this trail. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I have a question, 2 questions actually. I apologize, I didn't hear your name at the beginning. Can you hear me? That's the obvious question.
Joanne Aramini.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And then the other question is, this is a question for the AFC. Do we have a liaison to the BWALT?
We have a liaison position to the Open Transportation, whatever it's called, the Active Transportation
Safety
Committee,
Committee.
but the position's open, so you're welcome to volunteer.
Okay.
I mean, so BWALT, Beth sort of answered your question, BWALT itself doesn't have a committee, so there's not sort of a liaison assigned specifically, it's active transportation.
Okay, because, I mean, just from having
Maybe.
listened to what we just heard, I'm thinking that maybe we should make sure that we have someone participating or listening or something to what's going on with the BWALT committee or the Active Transportation Committee.
Those actually,
Just
both those committees, Josh is the liaison, so we can ask Josh to follow up with either of those committees, but.
If I can
Okay,
just
so we
add
did assign
one
him
thing,
because it was
there are
open.
tons of problems with the Active Transportation Committee as well in terms of their approach to this project and how everything is managed in that committee. That's supposedly supposed to also be addressed by the Select Board, but has not been yet.
And, yeah, I guess the other group would be planning, right? Planning.
Yeah, which is Josh, yeah,
Board.
that one's Josh as well, so.
So if I may, Kevin Barry, 8 Indian Pond Road. So to exemplify or illustrate, this is the problem with this project. You've got a project that's over $25 million in 2019 dollars, so it's going to be exasperated more because of obviously inflation, and by the time it's done, and you don't have a single governing body technically overseeing this. In essence, the town planner is the one that's moving forward with this without any oversight from any particular governing body. There's a couple of different people, it's gone back and forth, but no one's basically wrangled it and said, we are the oversight of this. Everything runs through us. That hasn't happened in the decade plus years that this has been going on, and we've been involved with this for over a year and a half now. And this is not knee jerk. We've poured through documents, we've been in front of you before, and it just continually, there's issues here. But the biggest thing that we're trying to illustrate, and I have some documentation to back up what Joanne had said, but in essence is the fact that this section 2 has not been completed. There are major issues, as Joanne just mentioned, about the wastewater treatment plant. It can't go through the original design because of the fact that there's going to be expansion there. That's been in the plans for years, and they've been discussing that. It's already been deemed they can't use that, so it's trying to be forced around a solar field there, which impacts wetlands, so the Conservation Commission is involved with this now. In essence, what we've been told and what understanding back there is it can't go through there, probably won't go through there. Obviously, the wetlands delineation has to happen. If that happens, there's no other way that goes through that area. So this comes to a dead stop. And here we are waiting for the $500,000. So it's a $400,000 grant with $100,000 matching funds from the town that's being put on this warrant article that who knows what's going to happen. It shouldn't happen right now. So for time's sake, I just want to, I've got a bunch of things to submit. So first and foremost is, I've kind of been the money person, and I think Mr. Steinberg has been more than helpful as far as my financial requests. I have requested, and I have on a spreadsheet that I will submit to you, basically all of the journal entries and expenditures for this project since 2013. So I have all the funds that have been allocated for it, as well as the direct expenses for it. So I will submit that, as well as in particular the Section 2 budget of the $550,000 for that project. I have the expenses that GM2 has been expended and paid for as far as that goes. So in essence, I'm here just to kind of, the documentation I'm going to give you will go forth to that. But the essence, I think, is what I've been trying to do all along is, despite repeated requests, neither the select board or the planning board has initiated a formal audit of this. I've done it all myself. Neither one of those boards has done any type of audit to go over what has been spent. So they're basically relying upon what they're being told by the town planner, which lies the problem that I found, what I got frustrated, why I did this in the first place. So basically, there hasn't been a financial audit for all these remaining funds and the budget that's spent, especially troubling, but basically a lot of the financial narratives have been knowingly misrepresented figures presented to both residents, boards, and committees by the town planner. Reluctance to answer direct questions, especially on a couple other projects, has only compounded the issue. So for example, what kind of started this whole process for me is with respect to BWALT, there were 2 information sessions back in May and September 2024, public information meetings. Ms. Jingers claimed that no funds were available when residents were asking them to see if there was a alternate route for Meadow Road. This is supposed to go right on Meadow Road, and there's some major safety issues. We were told repeatedly at that point there were no funds. So it comes to January 16th, there was a joint meeting between the select board and the planning board, and a slide was presented basically refuting what she had just said, and I have this right now, it's on the town website. As of January 16th, there were $53,000. There was more back then when she said there were no funds, but this slide says there were $53,000. Also on top of that, during at the August 12th select board meeting where there was an update, and where they designated that there has to be a flagging of these wetlands, she said she was going to reallocate the funds of the remaining $110,000 that were town matching funds for this Section 2. Yet, on that same slide, so this is August 12th, she's saying she's going to reallocate funds that were there, but on the same slide, it was already been spent. She put right there in black and white in front of the planning board and select board, as well as about 100 residents, saying there was those funds were used. So we're finding discrepancies, and it's really, really frustrating. I've got a couple issues if you want to read through what I present. I'm just going to skip through it. So in essence, basically, it's been exhausting. Why are we the ones demanding transparency, accountability, while boards, committees, and elected officials remain silent? And you're being presented information that you're accepting as valid, and it's not. We were told that if a grant application were approved, as Joanne said, which it still hasn't been, it's 234 days as of today. It's 84 days overdue as far as that application and the grant funds from the state. We were told, obviously, that it would be discussed beforehand. So basically, as Joanne said, enough is enough. Even as she mentioned, the originator of this $25 million project has called for pause, yet the town officials continue to push forward, relying on a biased feasibility study authored by the same individual who did this study. We've documented serious conflicts, misrepresentations, yet momentum persists. It's time for financial discipline, transparency, and common sense. That's kind of why we're here. We've got a lot more to go over with the select board. So this town has more pressing priorities, as you know. So let's stop the unchecked spending and refocus on what truly matters. Thank you for your time, and I'll submit these. Is that okay?
Sure.
If it's easier, I can send it via email as well.
Yeah, if you want to send them to me, the email, we can give them to the secretary also.
I'll do that.
That'd be great. Thank you.
To the individual that just spoke, is there a way for us to obtain some of the risks outlined for this project as well, and any costs associated with that risks? I heard the mention of wetlands. I heard the mention of a path through the sewer infrastructure region. If there are any costs or any kind of assessments that have been performed in that regard, if that can be submitted as well, that would be helpful too.
That actually is what the problem is. They're supposedly waiting on more funds to finish that wetlands. But basically, they've spent $550,000 on that Section 2. My calculations are that there are only $4,500 remaining for that. There's also remaining funds from other appropriations from free cash and open space funds. So basically, my calculations based on John's numbers or the financial documents he gave me were about 40 grand. The warrant article says 38 and change. So what in essence happens now is the grant they're waiting for is to do more studies. So they're waiting for another $500,000 or $400,000 grant with another $100,000 matching funds from the town to perform more design study. So that's basically what, $1.5 million, and then they would start construction, which is at the last estimate was about $6 million. If that answers your question.
Okay. Yes, and these details are in the material you're going to be giving to our secretary.
Those are actually on if you go on the town website, the planning department, under, I believe it's under public information or public, I forget how they title it, but it's the slides from the January 16th, 2025.
Okay. Note that I also came across a BWALT, Town of Westborough BWALT website, and I'm going through it as you were speaking, but I'm not seeing those numbers, but I think you're directing me to a different location, which is fine. I shall find it.
I think we have Ed instead of Alan. Ed, you're filling in for Alan tonight?
I think you're up
Can
next.
you use the microphone, please?
Ed Bain, 5 Thomas Rice Drive, and I'm here on behalf of the Westborough Affordable Housing Trust. Alan had a last-minute personal conflict, so so I'm stepping in as former chair, and I am a trustee. There we go. We have an article, as you know, in it's not coming up on, hold on a second. Let me just do it that way then. Okay, I'm not going to go into slideshow mode, but I think we can read this. Okay, so anyhow, this is Article 9 on the Fall Town Meeting. And the current article just reads to see if the town will vote to transfer a sum of money from the stabilization fund. This is really a recurring article that we've had for a number of meetings, which is moving some of the money that we get from the Pulte development, some mitigation money there, from the stabilization fund where it must go into the trust fund. And the numbers, there's going to be two numbers that will appear in the motion itself. One will be for the $201,194.24, which is basically the $200,000 plus a little bit of earned income or investment income. The second is approximately $10,000 in investment income. And basically the transfer funds from the 2024 special town meeting to the trust has not yet taken place. In other words, the physical transfer of the money has not taken place. I'm sure it's in the queue, but that $10,000 is the estimated amount of investment returns the trust would have received if the transfer had been completed last fall. So we'll have the exact amount on October 1st, and that will be incorporated in there. But it's somewhat around that amount of money. Rockland Trust is our fiduciary for that. That's where we keep our money. And I got a number last month from our rep there.
So it's going to be around 211,000.
Say again, please.
It's going to be about 211,000.
Yeah, somewhere in that range. With that, the 201 that's solid. It's the 10,000.
Yeah.
That would be different. So, as you probably know, Pulte Homes was granted a special permit for the Del Webb Chauncey Lake development back in it was September of 2018 by the Planning Board. And the permit basically gave them two mitigation items, which was, or two things that they had to do, either build 25 units of affordable housing within 3 years, or pay the town a total of $1.4 million to be used solely for the construction of affordable housing. And basically that was to, if you will, satisfy the requirement of affordable housing. Unfortunately, and I don't know all the details, they were not able to have affordable units in their development if it was going to be a 55 plus only development. If it was 62 plus, I think you've heard this before, then they would have been able to. So in lieu of that, to keep it at 55 plus, they needed to do some mitigation on that. So basically the schedule for that mitigation was 3 years with $400,000 and then $200,000 annually for 5 years. And that's where our $200,000 comes in. And per the special permit that was issued, the money was designated for construction of affordable housing. Okay, so just a little to catch up. In 2023 and 24, we got $602,000 and $201,000 were transferred to the trust, and the $200,000 plus the interest is due this fall. And basically transferring these funds really allows the trust to meet the town's obligation per the special permit, or allows the transfer to meet the requirements. That's it. Questions?
I'm sorry, I'm a little slow on the $10,000, and I understand it's money that hadn't yet been transferred. The $10,000, is that a real amount? I'm struggling with the word, so I apologize.
Sure.
But is that a real amount that is attributable to the unpaid amount, or is that a prospective amount that we believe it would have been had certain conditions been met?
Exactly. No, the 10,000, what it is the trust has its own account. It is maintained by Rockland Trust, which is the trust bank, the bank by which the town keeps, I believe, most of its funds, and Jonathan can correct me if I misstep here, okay? And it's invested conservatively, mostly in treasuries, and there are a few, I believe, other bonds and or stocks. And we get investment returns on that, just like if you had a portfolio. So the town always, by collecting money through both local receipts as well as tax revenue, tax levy, deposits the money in there, and that money, is invested and gets investment returns. The trust has an account also, which the town manages. Everything is run through the finance department, by the trust. I mean, they do all the accounting work and paying the bills and things like that. If the money had been transferred last October or so, after fall town meeting passed our article, we would have had an extra $201,000 in that account, in the trust's account, and that would have been invested. And basically, in $200,000, we were getting roughly about $1,000 a month in earned income. It's not a lot, but it does add up, and $10,000 is $10,000. So it's basically the money that we would have earned over the past year, approximately, had the money been transferred a year ago.
So that money right now, that 10,000-ish, is sitting in another account.
Theoretically, yeah,
not
it's been
conceivably earmarked to anything else. It's money that, for all intents and purposes, would have been Affordable Housing Trust money. It's just that it didn't move from point A to point B.
Yeah.
This is the execution.
right.
Okay.
It's been working. It's been earning. The money's been earning, but once again, any transfer has to be approved by town meeting. So that's why it has to be done.
Okay. Thank you.
This way. Okay.
Yeah.
Other questions?
No, I mean, I've done this 2 or 3 years in a row or so pretty straightforward. Originally, you guys had some other articles that were newer and more complex, but could you just briefly speak to?
Yeah, we had 2 other articles we decided to retract just because they weren't ready for prime time, if you will. One in particular was to allow people that had multifamily dwellings, like a 2 or 3 family house, to convert one of their apartments into an affordable unit. And that was allowed under the Commonwealth's Chapter 59A, I believe it is, where what they would do is they would get tax relief if they charged basically affordable rents in that, let's say, a third unit. Let's say it was a 3-family home. That was one thing that we were looking at. I think we just didn't feel that we had tightened down the language for the bylaw, which is what it would be, for that. So we decided, no, it can wait till
Spring.
to the Springtown meeting. And also we want to really have, I was doing some analysis, what the effect will be. We did talk briefly with the finance director and the chief assessor, and I think we all agreed it wasn't ready for prime time. We also want to see, well, what could the effect be? Like if we look at all the 2 or 3 or 4 family houses, and we make an assumption about how many of those might take advantage of this type of program, what might be the tax impact, because that would be prudent to be able to, tell the town meeting what those numbers would be, or our best estimate of that. And I'm forgetting the second one we pulled. It
was a house on one of the streets. Alan said it wasn't.
Willow
there wasn't
Street.
Enough info on it yet.
Yeah, there's a piece of property on Willow Street that is owned by the town. That's been there forever. Hard to find records on it, and we thought it might be appropriate maybe for the trusts, such as the High Street extension, but we really haven't had a chance to look at it too closely. So once again, since we weren't ready, we didn't want to waste town meeting time on that article.
Appreciate that.
Okay.
Beth was her hand.
Are there that many multifamily homes in Westborough?
Say again, Beth?
Are there that many multifamily homes in Westborough?
I think, yes, there's, I did a number, and I believe, and it may be the number of units. Jonathan, you might be able to tell me. I had like 600, and that may be the number of apartments or units within multifamily homes. So there's probably
Okay.
fewer than that, but when you, like, one unit would be for 3, if it was a 3-family home, then that would count. towards 3.
Right,
And-
okay.
And so
Like a
that's once I
triple-decker.
started to see those kind of numbers, we're saying, whoa, this may be more than we had anticipated. But there are quite a few.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Ed.
Thank you.
Thanks for filling in, Ed. Appreciate coming in from the bullpen here.
All right, it looks like John and Christy, it's your turn. So I will tell you guys that we have budget discussion and then the article. I asked Christy if she could go through sort of the budget stuff we wanted to talk about before the meeting next Monday, as well as a very long list of articles. So,
While she's setting up, we might, it looks like the meeting's at 6 PM, not 6:30 by the posting.
yes.
Right.
So,
It's posted for 6 anyways, for
Monday.
Monday.
Yes. Yeah.
At one point, we thought it was at 6:30, so.
Oh.
If you're wondering why half the finance team came at 6:30 to this, we should tell Josh.
yeah, so I'll send out something and remind everybody.
So I think we would wait on this article to vote till we know the real number anyway, so.
Yeah, we're gonna have to run the draft for the first one. for the next meeting.
Yeah,
That's what I was thinking also.
and I think that's when the warrants get closed.
Christy, when does the warrant close?
Next select board
Tuesday.
meeting? Tuesday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I will send out a new version of the warrant tomorrow. It'll be essentially the same, it's the same articles that you've seen, except for there's the 2 additional petition articles, which I think Mr. Savoy has shared with you
Yeah.
maybe already. So he did get those in, so we'll be adding them to the warrant.
Okay.
And then there's just some updates within the articles. But as we go through them, I can let you know what those are.
I think it's 100. It's a big number. It's not the 10.
Okay. Sorry about that. Sorry, I tried to get this ready sooner, but my computer died. Okay. So my name is Christy Williams. I'm the town manager, and I have with me John Steinberg, who is the finance director. We were asked to kind of give a budget overview to level set a little bit around the budget process in advance of the budget summit. So some of the things that we're going to talk about today, you'll also hear about on Monday. But this is, I think a good basis for discussion, and then, we'll talk more on Monday. So in just sort of talking about the budget and the budget process, we looked at the charter, and the charter has finance and fiscal procedures that are required. So as those of you who have been on the finance committee before, you know that the budget is due from me to the select board and filed with this committee as well as capital expenditure planning 10 days before the end of the calendar year. So we try really hard to get it done before December 21st, but it's usually right around there. And we make it available in hard copy as well as online, so it's fully available to not just those committees that I listed, but also the public. And then one thing that we sort of talked about a lot during the last budget process was that except for the school budget, the budget shall be in the form that the town manager deems desirable or the select board may require. So I'll talk a little bit more about what that form looks like. So for the budget process, we really kicked that off in September, which we're doing on Monday with the tri-board meeting of the Select Board, School Committee, and Advisory Finance Committee. We've already asked our departments for their capital requests, so that process is ongoing, and then we usually ramp up that process right after the October town meeting. And then we ask departments to get their budgets into us, their initial requests, and get budget meetings scheduled sometime in October. So we spend the first couple weeks of November meeting with all of the department heads and going through all of their requests. And then, as some of you know, our budget document includes a lot of narrative information about departments. And so those narratives are also due in November. And then, as I said, the document becomes available to the public in December, and then we work through several different meetings up until March. So we have our budget hearing in January, which is also required under the charter, and then the budget summit. So we need to come up with a better name, I think, folks. So we have the budget summit in September, which is in the evening, and it's a tri-board meeting. We have another one in January, which is a full day meeting, and that's the select board and the Advisory Finance Committee, and then the school committee also attends typically as the school's presenting. So the select board is the executive branch of the community. So they do many things that influence the budget in terms of how it's put together. But they participate in the creation of the guiding documents, which I'll talk about. They establish goals, set policy, and then they're also the appropriate public authority for insurance, which is one of our biggest budgets, as well as they collective bargaining for all of the town, unions. So as we prepare our budgets, we look at many guiding documents. You've seen this slide many times, but this is some of the more recent guiding documents that we refer to. So 2018 strategic plan, 2021 master plan, 2021 climate action plan, and then most recently we had a community needs assessment for seniors in our community. Also, this we haven't highlighted as much, but every year we do a retreat with the select board, and so they develop several goals. So there's several goals of the town manager as well as goals of the select board. This gets done in April usually to begin for the next fiscal year. So all of these goals are to be accomplished for fiscal 26. I know one of the speakers earlier brought up a goal. That's something that's also up here on the list. But as you can see, there's many things. So we have the 12 months where we're working through these goals. When we were developing the fiscal 26 budget, our request to the department heads was that they present to us a level service budget. Level service, as you know, is different from level funded. So it's the same level of service that we currently provide. And certainly, as we're all aware, costs go up. We have agreements with different unions and salaries go up. So level service budget is higher than the current fiscal year. When we send out our budget requests to all the department heads, we put together a couple years ago this budget manual to let them know exactly what the process is, what all the milestone points are, and then our guidelines for the different budget narratives. We also introduced what we call a program improvement request. And this was an effort to highlight things in the budget that are being requested that are different and above level service. So examples of these, I show an example up here. It's an older example, but so now you see that line in the budget. So what the department requested, then a line just showing their program improvement request, and then what the town manager, in working with our team, has recommended. So I think one of the things that's important here is that you'll notice that it's not always a department request plus the PIR equals what we recommend, because we really go through that work to decide whether or not something is a priority for the upcoming fiscal year. PIR forms also include any additional requests for headcount. So PIR form has to be done if someone wants to increase an employee's hours or create a new position. And then, as I mentioned, we meet with the department heads. So myself and finance director, we meet with the department heads Also, if it's a request for a new employee, we also meet with the assistant town manager because she's also the human resources director. But we look at many things. So expenses, we look at expiring contracts, we review equipment needs and timing of replacement. We spend a lot of time looking at what's been spent in that line item, a real full report of what's been spent in each line item, what we expect to spend in the next year. If things have not been fully spent, why not? Can we reduce that line? We always are excited to find ways that we can reduce different lines when we're working through. But we also want to make sure that our lines are reflecting what's being spent. So if we have a line that's consistently over, because within expenses, we certainly have many different line items and we're able to spend across the line items, we want to make sure that that's reflected in the following year in that line item so that we can be really clear about what we're spending our money on. Oh, I thought I got rid of this animation, so I'm just going to click as fast as I can. One of the things we talked about last year that we wanted to highlight again this year is that we do a lot of things over the year where we really review different opportunities for efficiency, ways that we can work with other communities. So things that I just sort of came to mind in the 15 years that I've worked here, we have created a regional veterans district. We do regional animal control. Our sustainability coordinator that we brought on is funded, I think 30% by a grant. Our management analyst and communications assistant was the result of one of our admins in our position, well, we don't have that position anymore, but was one of the admins in our office that had retired. So really looking at evaluating those positions and the needs of the office and where we could improve and provide a better service to the community. So I won't go through all of these, but really a lot of them are opportunities for regionalism, making sure we're evaluating positions as they become vacancies. Most recently, I think you're aware that we reviewed our health insurance plans. So we moved from Blue Cross to Harvard Pilgrim, and that was at a significantly lower rate than our renewal with Blue Cross would have been. We've also added the Worcester Regional Transit Authority mobility management model into the senior center, which creates a savings and also removes the requirement for maintenance of our vehicles there. And then, we brought on Shrewsbury Youth and Family Services as an example, and we're working to develop the Regional Dispatch Center, which I'll talk about because that's one of the articles. So this is the budget document. Our budget document is it wins awards. So the Government Finance Officers Association puts together a list of criteria. We started doing this, I think, in 2020. And so this was really an effort to make our budget document a policy document, a financial plan, operations guide, and communications device, which is what GFOA encourages communities to do. Another thing that really drives how we think about the budget is our comprehensive fiscal management policy. So that is adopted and amended by the select board, but always with input from the advisory finance committee. And when we're talking about things that would impact the school committee, they're also involved in those discussions. It's a very long policy, so it includes just how we fully manage our money and our reserves and our debt and capital. And then, so this is just showing for fiscal 25, because that's what we looked at as we looked at fiscal 20, we were developing fiscal 26, where our free cash was and our stabilization. So making sure that we're within our policies, because when we go out to get our bond rating, that's one of the most important things that we talk about, which is that we are following our policies. And one of the things that we also talk about often is how we use free cash. We have a large amount of free cash, which we use on non-recurring or emergency expenditures. So we often use it on the capital plan. We have also, over the past several years, have used it to lower the tax rate. We've used it to fund unfunded liabilities such as OPEB. And then it can be appropriated to other funds. So a couple years ago, we increased our stabilization fund with free cash. and this is just an example of how we've increased our use of free cash over time. This slide, I think we introduced a couple years ago, which was when we were really trying to make the point that the use of free cash to fund operating expenses and depleting the ability or the amount of free cash is sometimes the practice in other communities, and it leads to a need to raise and appropriate or raise on the taxes any funds needed for the purchase of capital. So this slide is intended to show that if we had had to levy the funds for the capital that we purchased in that year, the increase to the tax bill would have been significantly higher than it was because we were able to use free cash. So this is a slide talking about our bond rating. This is specific to Westborough. So this is from one of our recent reports saying that we have really strong financial performance and that we are following our policies. And then we always want to show our grant funds. So this was for fiscal 24. We'll show an updated one on Monday, but as we produced our fiscal 26 budget, we were certainly looking at the grant funds that we might pursue. So as you can see, we're always working to apply for grants. And then these are other financial resources. So depending on what's the issue that's before us, there are multiple resources that we've put on the warrant. All of these require town meeting approval to transfer from. So then when we completed fiscal 26 after budget reductions, this was where we landed in terms of the percentage of the increase. And then this is showing the percentage of the budget that went to different areas within the budget. And then, of course, the estimated average single family, this is still showing the 663 for fiscal 26. This was what was estimated by town meeting, or at town meeting, and we'll give an update again on Monday with different numbers. And then this is a slide that we actually passed out last year at town meeting, and this is just showing people with the average single family tax bill where the different dollars are spent. So then just sort of bringing it back to the Advisory Finance Committee and your role, your advisory, and I'm sure many of you know this, your advisory to the legislative branch, so advisory to town meeting. This I took out of the ATFC handbook, so the Association of Town Finance Committees, really great resource. But then also within the general bylaws, Westborough's general bylaws, Article 3 says that the committee shall be referred all articles in any warrant for a town meeting, and said committee shall report thereon to the town meeting and make such recommendations as it deems best for the interest of the town and its citizens. So that's what you're doing tonight when you're looking at all of the articles and making recommendations to the town meeting as to how to vote. Jumping sort of over to this slide, we were looking at how our revenues are applied. And so as you're thinking about, I know that this has come up a lot with the Finance Committee in the past, or in the recent past, is how we apply revenues. And I think this is something that seems to be misunderstood sort of out there. And so we want to keep reiterating the point that each one of these bars is the amount of money that's needed to run the government and provide the services that we're providing in that fiscal year. We are able to reduce the levy by whatever receipts or state aid we receive. So we estimate local receipts, and then right before we set the tax rate, we continually revise, and then that contributes to what the actual tax levy is. So this big bar is what we need, and then the blue bar is what is actually levied on the taxes. So I think one of the things that often comes up is if there was more money, if there's more money that comes in for a receipt than is estimated, how do we handle that? Well, the answer is if it comes in after we set the tax rate, that ends up going to free cash. Before setting the tax rate, we want to capture that because we want the tax increase to be lower. This year, Chapter 70 has come in a little bit higher than we estimated, but it's still those receipts are about $11 million, which of course is less than we spend on that budget. And so we want to reduce the amount so that it has to be levied by the community. Do you want to talk about Prop 2.5?
John Steinberg, Finance Director. So one of the things that's often misunderstood relative to the budgeting and spending is Proposition 2.5. Proposition 2.5 dictates not necessarily the limit to which you can increase, but in terms of last year's budget, it's not related to the budget at all, actually. It has to do with how much you could raise, potentially. And it's 2.5% over the prior year's levy, okay, plus new growth, right? And so when you have a lot of new growth, plus ours, and new growth is defined as property that is being taxed for the first time, okay? We have a lot of personal property, we have a lot of new companies, we have a lot of new construction. All that stuff being taxed for the first time is going to add to the number that could be raised in a given year. So in the reality, from year to year, if you had no excess levy capacity, you're really going to be able to raise an additional probably 5%, not 2.5%. The 2.5% was developed back in the 80s. Okay, so these numbers are also old, right? But when you add that new growth, which is relevant because it's adding to the total value of the town, okay, you end up with a number that's higher than 2.5%. Okay, so if you look at the image on the left, right, you have your prior year's levy limit, okay, plus the 2.5, plus the new growth on top of it. So if you look at year one up there, just to sort of simplify it, if the prior year's levy limit was $10 million, you add the 250 in Prop 2.5, 150 for new growth, you could raise $10,400,000, okay? If you only raise $10 million, you've created excess levy capacity of $400,000. Those are taxes that you could have raised that you didn't. The following year, even though year one you only raised $10 million, the following year the levy limit is calculated on the 10-4. So it's calculated on the levy limit from the prior year plus 2.5% of that plus new growth. So in year two, you end up with a levy limit of $10,710,000. If you actual levy is only $10,100,000, you've now increased your excess levy capacity by $610,000. That never goes down unless you exceed that, okay, like we did last year. If your spending and money you need to raise exceeds 2.5 plus new growth, you will then spend down that excess levy capacity. Recently, you've seen a lot of communities go through this, and they've needed overrides. When you need an override, you don't have the capacity to raise enough to cover your budget, okay? And that includes all the estimated receipts that Christy mentioned. All the state aid, all the receipts, everything you need to pay for the government for that year, you don't have enough money. So you need that override. And when you do an override, it goes right into the following year's levy limit. So if you look at the bar on the right, it lays that out compared to the one on the left as to how that excess levy capacity grows, where you have your actual levy amount and the amount that's raised, and that net, that purple part, is what carries over into excess levy capacity. And so here's our Prop 2.5 in our history. And you can see there's only 2 times in the last 10 years that we've actually exceeded Prop 2.5 restrictions. Okay, people like to say, well, we need to stay within Prop 2.5. We are staying within Prop 2.5. Okay, it's not 2.5% times the budget. And that's a real misnomer, what people don't understand, okay? It'd be a different math if you said, well, how many times did we stay inside of 2.5 times the budget? And the challenge with that is you have expenses that would not allow for anything else, okay? And this is just another look at that same thing in dollars. So you have things like debt, right? Commitments that we've already made, right? So these numbers are going to eat up some of that 2.5% over prior year. Now we have a lot of debt coming off, right? But all of a sudden, we've taken on more in the library, right? And so you have that jump, okay? We have a standard to try to stay within 7% of the general fund budget. But if you watch the school committee meeting last night, they mentioned $7 million of a high school roof, right? So there are debt needs that are going to push that debt budget up to eat up that 2.5 plus new growth. Health insurance, another one. And we reference these because these are things that are typically the largest increases. So if you say, you know, an arbitrary number, or even staying within 2.5, but these things go up that eat up 2.5 plus part of new growth, then it doesn't leave any capacity for step increases or COLAs or other things without making deeper cuts, right? And as we've discussed in the past, our largest expense throughout town is people. And so that's what you end up cutting, right? You can cut, as we did last year, you can cut certain items, but cutting budgetary line items is nickel and diming when you start talking about the bigger picture of how do you hold that back. But the important message is, relative to the discussion about Prop 2.5, is we've done a good job at staying within that, okay? But you have to take into account that new growth aspect. We've had over $3 million in new growth the last 2 or 3 years. So now you're 2.5 plus $3 million. And you have your wage commitments, something Christy mentioned before. We have a certain level of staff, we have union contracts, we have commitments to the staff that we have, right? We have public safety, we want our roads plowed, we want, you know, the finance department to do what the finance department does. If we don't have that, the government breaks, right? Or it impacts the taxpayers in one way or another, right? And so you have to take those things into consideration when you're looking at the overall budget. And that's what we try to do on this end as we're preparing it and as we're going through and we're doing the reviews that we do. And I'll turn back to Chris.
I think this is the last slide, but this is just giving a heads up on the 2 upcoming sort of larger meetings. So one is the Budget Summit, which is on Monday, what we talked about, and then that all-day meeting. I put up here January 29th. It's usually the last Thursday in January. You know, more to come, I guess, to confirm that that's going to work for everyone. We always have fire, police, public works, and the school department present. If there's time, we might bring a department that has something sort of extraordinary happening in their budget. And last year, that's when we started the budget reduction discussion. But I think we're going to spend some time on this upcoming Monday to have some more discussion about how we want to move forward. And that's our whole presentation. So we can send that around, send that out to Jane to share with all of you, but happy to answer any questions.
So this might just be a question which you have already answered previously. So I apologize in advance if I'm re-asking that. The new growth, let's say my property value increases from 100 to 120,000 without actually making any structural change. Would that be considered as a new growth as well?
No, that's value growth relative to market value. Every year, the values are done based upon Mass General Law to follow the market. It's only about new construction. If you did an addition on your house, that portion of it would be new growth.
Sure.
But the existing home value would not. It's just that net amount.
Net amount.
So, yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
We do have a hand up.
Sorry. So last year, when the town went through the painful exercise of looking at pulling back budgets, I think that was a time that you guys did tremendous work about looking at things that services that maybe didn't need to. I take that back. That we were actively choosing maybe not to support as much as we could. And I think I don't think that was viewed in the end as major service cuts. But when we talk about level service, is it not possible that at the time of budgeting, at the early stage, is that not the best time to say, hey, what are the services we may not need to push forward or options? Because I know that there's other exercises that you go through to pull money back potentially, but is that not the best time to say, how could we think about some of the services that would be the lowest hanging fruit potentially to be able to not continue?
So I would say that's part of the work that we do, that John and I do with the department heads, is to go through, some of the different things that they, sort of a simple example would be if there's a program that we're running that people aren't participating in, certainly looking at that type of thing, and that would be something that we would take off the table. But that's just a simple example, but we do go through those conversations. I do think that this idea that there's all this sort of low-hanging fruit, that there's all this extra stuff it's just not the case. And I think that we showed that last year when we cut positions. So, and we did get negative feedback from some of the positions that we've cut. We have heard from the public that there is difficulty there. So, but to your point, yes, that is part of our process.
And you're right, low-hanging fruit was a terrible choice of terms because it was very, very difficult. I realize that. I didn't mean to
and I appreciate your
negatively
comments.
to
Yeah.
it. So,
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right.
I have a question. I'm assuming that through the budget process, you're looking at certain departments where you could look to reduce to cross-fund areas where you want to invest, or would be more crucial in terms of town services. So is that part of your normal process too when you go through the evaluation?
I'm not sure I understand your question.
For example, in Community Advocate, right, Northborough is facing or it looks like they may potentially have to look at facing level service and level spending. And so if you think around level spending, there's probably some departments that you may be able to hold the expenses on or reduce, but yet there are certain areas that you still are very crucial, right, and would be very risky to cut in terms of services to the town.
Oh.
So I'm just asking, normally one would be looking at where's areas that I want to kind of cut back on spending, where I want to try to invest more, that would be more crucial. So I'm just asking, is that going to be part of the process, or has it been? And then will it be transparent to us?
So I think, so certainly we have had in the past, we have departments whose spending does not go up or actually reduces by a small margin. Typically though, you're not going to see that in a total department because of the agreements that we have with unions. You'll see salary increases, so you won't necessarily see any department that's level funded because there's likely union employees or other employees that we have salary obligations to. But certainly, I think that you see when there's a need in some of these larger departments where we're talking about public safety, for example, that's obviously a higher priority than others.
Yeah, thank you. I think that's a real good warm-up for get our brains back, because we've been just thinking about the warrant, but Monday night we forget about the warrant for a day and go back to next year, so it's a good warm-up.
Great.
So then the other thing I have too many tabs open and can't find what I'm actually looking for. So we had talked through sort of a list of articles we were hoping to get more information. Christie can speak to a lot of them. So sort of our next thing is talking through the articles. If you want to maybe run through those ones.
Sure. Do you want me to just start?
Yeah, if you
Start
Prior
number
year
Article
bills,
1?
do we have any?
Sure.
We do. We have, is it 2 prior year bills? And do you want to speak to what they are?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we have a company that we had used a couple times for translation services when people came to the select board's office and were speaking a language that they didn't have. We have a number we can call, and they brought some bills up from somewhere. They were doing some accounting and cleaning up some stuff, and they were a couple years old in some cases. So we're coming forward with those to try to clean up what was remaining.
They're pretty low numbers.
Oh yeah, small bills, small calls, small bills. Yes.
Do you have a number? Yeah.
I don't have a number off the top of my head.
But
but it's
that would
under
be
$200.
that'll be in the Tuesday warrant.
I'll put article information in there. We're
Okay.
gonna leave the article broad in case something else
Oh, right,
pops
right.
before town
You can
meeting.
still do it.
Yep. But we'll put that in the article information. The Article 2 is the revolving fund for the senior transportation program. So this is to establish a new revolving fund. They're listed under Article 15 of the general bylaws, so it's required by town meeting vote. When we create these, we have to say all of these different columns. So we have to say what the fund is, the purpose, the funds to be deposited from, and then who's authorized to expend them, and our maximum expenditure. So you did see these. We did an article at the annual meeting where we sort of reestablished or reaffirmed all of our revolving accounts. So this is a new one. It would be authorized to be expended under the Senior and Social Services Director. So as I mentioned, when we started in this fiscal year, we started working with WRTA to do their mobility management model, which is a senior transportation program. One of the pieces of that program is that WRTA reimburses us for all salary for the drivers. And so we budgeted in this current year's budget $78,000 for the payment of our minibus drivers. And as we're spending that money, we're being reimbursed. Right now, when we get that money in, it goes into the general fund. What we would like to do is to establish the revolving account so that the money will go into the revolving account and then can be expended directly from the revolving account, which will reduce what we need to raise and appropriate for next year's budget.
Yeah, so that this is just establishing the account. There's no money going in it directly now. Once it's established, then you could take the money that you're getting paid back from WRTA and use that to pay salaries in the future.
Exactly. So we expect to be able to do that mid-fiscal year because it has to be approved by the AG.
Oh, right. So there's probably a 4 to 6 month delay or something from we approve it, but it gets.
If we sent it out, I think it's 30 days they get,
Okay.
and I don't expect they'll have a lot of questions, so we're estimating that it would come into, that it would become available hopefully by December 1st.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's good.
But
Yeah, maybe it's the more complex ones that take longer.
with
the
zoning, and, yeah,
stuff.
that can take some more time.
Chrissy, does this enable you to have more visibility into the reimbursement?
Yeah, I mean, it's a separate account, so I think right now you would be able to easily see within our records where the money is coming from, but this will be a 1-for-1, whatever we get reimbursed is what we're paying out.
That's like a good idea.
Okay, so Article 3 is for 2026 budget adjustments, and the reason that revolving accounts is number 2, which it normally wouldn't be, is because we would need that account to get approved for us to move forward with the budget adjustments. What we're asking for is we intend for this $78,000 or this savings to continue year over year as we continue to use this mobility management model with WRTA, which means that it's not a one-time savings, it's a long-term savings to be able to not have to raise and appropriate the funds for the wages for the minibus drivers. And so our request is that we use that savings to reestablish 2 of our positions that were cut during the fiscal 26 budget process in a way that would allow us to maintain that 1% that we did cut going into fiscal 26. And so the 2 positions that we're looking to bring back is we used to have a part-time position in the treasurer collector's office. It was a 25-hour-a-week position, meaning that it was benefited. We are asking to bring back a 19-hour-a-week employee in that position, which would allow us to reopen that office. Right now it's open Tuesday through Friday, closed on Mondays to the public. And so that's our request for that one. And then we're also asking that we be able to bring back the Board of Health administrative assistant. That was a 40-hour-a-week position. When that position went away, we took the administrative assistant from planning and split his time, 20 hours in each. That has been difficult, especially when you have offices that have inspectors that are on the road. So when there isn't a steady presence of an administrative assistant, then when inspectors are on the road, the office is closed. And so what we're requesting or what we're proposing is that we would bring back the Board of Health administrative assistant at 32 hours per week. So it would continue to be a benefited position, but that would allow us to bring back both of those positions within that savings that we anticipate going forward.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
How
well.
practical is it to hire people at 32 hours a week versus full-time in terms of getting candidates? And then 2, do you really need the 32 hours to cover if the other person was 50-50 to cover the missing part when they're not there now? I mean, that's a big, you're almost doubling the amount of people again or something. Well, you have one person covering 2 places, but now you have 2 people, so. Like why 32 and not 20 or something like that, I guess is the question.
Because are you saying because we have 20 hours right now? Is that?
Yeah, ostensibly you have somebody in that office 20 hours a week, so.
We have somebody in each office 20 hours per week, and I think
Right.
they want somebody in each 40.
But that's not going to happen
No.
because you're putting 32.
Right,
in
that's
this
what we
one.
would want, yes, but that's not what we're able to do
Yeah.
under that savings. So, this person has the responsibility to cover the office, to keep it open in terms of selling stickers, scheduling inspections. They also take the minutes for the Board of Health meetings. They pay all of the bills. They do all of the administrative responsibilities that all of our other departments have, which is full-time positions. There are several communities that work fewer hours than Westborough. And so 32, 35 hours isn't completely unheard of in the municipal world. And that would really allow a four-day work week, essentially, without the late Tuesday night, which obviously when there's a Board of Health meeting, we would have to adjust, but we would be hopeful that we could find someone in a part-time capacity.
And I'm sorry, could you walk the 78,000 through in terms of the savings from Article 2 and how that offsets the new? I apologize.
No, it's
I
okay.
wasn't ready for
It's a
that.
little confusing. So for fiscal 26, we budgeted it's $78,000 for our mini bus drivers, and we had not set up the revolving account yet. Now that we're currently receiving funds, it's going into the general fund, that money. So it's not available to actually directly pay our employees who are driving. What we're proposing is that the revolving fund would receive those reimbursements directly so that we could pay them out directly, which means that we wouldn't have that same need to use budgeted money or to budget going forward. So we of the 78,000, there's a little over 6,000 that we would retain within the Council on Aging budget. And that's really because when the drivers are not driving for WRTA, that's on the town. We don't get reimbursed for that. And so if they're driving folks to a Tuesday night event at the senior center or doing some other program, there's still funds for that available. But then we would use the savings, the remainder of the savings, to put back into the budget in these other departments.
So thank you. I think I did see that. I suppose the part that I was missing was that the 78 that we would, prior to having the revolving account, that 78 was coming into the general fund and being spent elsewhere.
No, so the 78 was raised on the levy, was raised
Yep.
and appropriated. And we would spend that money as we normally would. Then WRTA would reimburse us for that amount, but it can't go directly back into the budget. So it goes into the general fund.
But in the end, it still ended up in the larger pot of money that would end up being part of what we spent, right? So that 78 is now dropping out somewhere. That's 78 that we would have gotten back, but is now going directly to the revolving fund. That 78, what used to be a plus somewhere, is now a zero.
Right. So any money that we've received to date would end up going, likely close out to free cash. But there's not a need to budget that money, which means we wouldn't need to raise it on the taxes because we know that it's essentially coming directly from WRTA.
Got it.
Does that make
Thank
sense?
you. I think so, yeah.
So if I may, I don't get where the savings is because we budget 78,000, we receive 78,000 from WRTA, so it's a wash at the end of the day. So
Right.
where's the saving?
Because we're not budgeting it. We wouldn't be budgeting it anymore.
We
Yeah, but
would
it-
no
but it's-
longer need to cover the expense. WRTA is covering the expense now, so now we're gonna take the funds we were going to pay and use them to pay a different.
But from the town's perspective, it's the same. It's a wash. It's left pocket, right pocket.
It's not, because you're not raising that money on the taxes. It's a decrease of 78,000 in the budget.
So we didn't account for the money from WRTA when we established the budget. So we didn't anticipate it coming in, which is why it's closing out to free cash now and not offsetting the expense, right? So when we budgeted, we thought we're gonna pay the minibus drivers.
I'm sorry, I still don't see savings here. But maybe I can take it afterwards.
Because there really isn't savings where the proposal is to spend the money we had planned on spending
Okay.
to get additional people
Yes.
instead.
Okay.
Because
Correct.
your choice was you could create the revolving fund and lower the levy by 72,000 or whatever the difference is, or you could leave the proposed levy at where it was and have these additional resources.
Right.
So it's a real
and-
decision on your value of the additional resources.
But in the end, I think 78,000 fewer will be going to free cash when things close
That too.
out because
Exactly.
we never raised and appropriated it.
That's
So
hence
there's
the left pocket,
your
right pocket.
savings, yeah.
Well, it's not a savings because free cash will not receive $78,000.
Just
It
those-
will be
Correct,
all
but
in
we
revolving
won't raise and
account.
appropriate it either. So we won't be putting that levy on the
But we are
town.
raising appropriate because we're going to put it towards these two departments.
Exactly.
That's
So
right.
and that's
Yeah.
what just disappears.
I think the point that we made when we presented to the select board and definitely want to make here is that we're maintaining the 1% reduction that we were asked to
Right.
create. So
It doesn't increase the 1% reduction.
That's right.
It keeps it the same.
right.
But you end up with more services, in
Right.
essence.
Sorry if I can add in, this is an effective free cash transfer to support the aims and objectives of the WRTA, and that's it, correct? And additionally, there is no additional taxation needed?
No.
Is that correct?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, if you don't mind, if you can just summarize, just at a high level, what exactly, I just want to understand. So this is $78,000 are not going to go into free cash, but what is happening to the 78,000? It is being used for some other purposes that was not originally budgeted. Is that correct?
The request, yeah, so the request is to essentially redistribute the remaining funds that are available in the budget to the Board of Health and the Treasurer Collector's Office in order to partially reestablish the positions that were cut at the same, we're keeping the budget at the same level that we were asked to put it forward at.
Okay.
Yeah, I know it's small dollars, but again, by having underspent the budget, why not just let it flow through and go into free cash? And then you could always, as you build up through the year and have more savings, we've got more flexibility here to offset spending.
So that's certainly an option. I would advocate for establishing the revolving account regardless of how you feel about Article 3, because I don't think that you want to tax folks on something that we know we can guarantee we're getting reimbursement for. And certainly, I don't think that there's a need to create that mechanism where you're pushing money to just increase free cash. I don't think that that's the need. I think the revolving fund. Okay.
Yeah. No, I would agree with you, Christy. Article 2 would stay, right? I think that makes perfect sense. But it's more around anytime you're trying to, you're creating savings or underspending. It's not underspending versus budget. I just have this gut reaction that says, why am I then looking to re-spend that money? And I went back and I looked at last year's line item detail, and there's a lot of line items where we've underspent. It was hard to understand from the spreadsheet, what the total amounts were that were underspent, but it feels like, it's real dollars that we're, looking at. If we're underspending, we should just hold on to that and then, then move on from there to next year, which is also going to be very difficult and challenging.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I had that slide up earlier of sort of all the different ways that we've tried to create savings and create efficiency. And we certainly don't always come back and say, let's figure out a way to spend that money that we saved. I think the reality that we're facing here is that we cut positions in order to maintain that 1%. And I'm not going to come back to you and ask you to now give us the money for those positions. But I do think that because we're maintaining that 1%, and this is not a one-time, I would not ask for it at a one-time savings, but one that we expect will be a year-over-year savings as we continue with this program. We're asking to be able to reestablish these two positions, which we think were the highest priority to be reestablished of what was cut last year.
Terry, I think part of the answer is what Christy just touched on. We have two offices that are closed right now to the public at times. So the idea is to get them open again through the reallocation of approved funds. And relative to your comment about the line items, one of the important things to note, and this Christy touched on this earlier as well, is that you may see line items that are underspent, but you may see other line items within a budget that are overspent. So you have to look at the bottom line. One of the things that we're trying to really work towards is to properly apportion those within budgets so you're not having those ups and downs. There are certain budgets that for years have overspent one line item and come in under in other line items, and we want to equalize that such that it's better reflective of what should be spent within that line item. So I would encourage you not to go line by line, but step back from that and look at that broader picture. A little different than in the
John, I totally agree with you. Because you kind of lose the forest for the trees when you get that level of detail that you're looking at. That's why, for me, it's always easier just to kind of look at higher level and then kind of peel the onion back a little bit, because you are going to have fluctuations by every single line item. I mean, you know, your level of detail and planning is going to force you to have variances across the board. So it's more important for me to understand at a higher level, you know, what's the needs to run the town by, and then look at, you know, where you've got some levers to pull. But I agree with you, that level of detail, you can't, yeah, it's overwhelming, but it may not lead you to the right answer either. I agree with you.
So can I just add, so for this particular article, Article 3, the total amount for the two positions for a full year is about $66,000. So it's not the full 78 that we're looking to spend. And the amounts which you'll see in version 4 of the warrant is $13,915 to the finance department for that 19-hour position, and $22,355 to the health department position, and that's because they're partial year. So that's anticipating that those folks are hired beginning December 1st.
And unrelated to these two, there aren't any other transfers at
No.
this time? Adjustments at this time?
No.
I can just say, $103.20, by the way, the two outstanding bills.
Oh,
Thanks, Joe. Okay.
probably cost more than that for them to figure out they hadn't been paid in 2 years.
All right.
But
If we don't have anything else on 3, can you tell us about so Allison attempted Article 4 but didn't know a whole lot about it, so
I'm probably going to disappoint you. I think I'm probably going to tell you exactly what superintendent told you, which is that this is a student who has chosen to go to Norfolk Aggie, and so we received this invoice, and it was after town meeting. In the future, this would be shown similar to Assabet, so either in its own budget, or we might sort of rename that budget and put both in. But this is an expense that we have to pay. In terms of how this presentation, so I think we've talked to her, we've actually taken off the school department as the proponent of the article. However, they are going to be the ones to speak to the article because they have the best knowledge about the programs that a student might be seeking that they can't get from Assabet or within the Westborough program. And then also what the details of that number is, but it's tuition, transportation. I'm sure she said all that as well. So
I think
Yeah,
our
that-
questions were more, and she didn't really know, like,
are
there
there
other school, right? Like,
how many other places could someone go besides the ones we're going? But do we know that,
To
or?
my knowledge, that's the only one certainly within this area that
Yeah.
they would qualify for transportation.
the internet.
No, I
certainly
didn't mean
did.
agricultural school, because I know there's very few of them in the state, but I mean, are there
Other technical schools.
another vocation school beyond these? It was just a new thing to us. So
Yeah.
we're just wondering, it's more curiosity. Could
Yeah.
next year someone come and want to go to a nursing thing or something like that? I don't know.
my understanding from talking to her, so again, probably what she already said to you,
Yeah.
is that it has to be a program that's not otherwise offered within our district or through Assabet. I remember Leah telling me that years and years ago we had folks or students going to Norfolk Aggie, so
Yeah.
it wasn't completely foreign to me, but we haven't in many years. So
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. It was just new.
yeah.
All right. So 6 was the next one.
Yep.
So, yeah, who's the proponent of 6?
So the planning department is going to be
Okay,
the
yes.
proponent. And they're actually coming to the select board meeting on Tuesday to do a presentation. So I know that this was discussed in the beginning of the meeting. Just clear up a couple things. The BWALT project, back in, 22, I think, we issued a memo saying that this was going to be under the select board. Since that time, we've had a change in the planning department. We've added some more staff, and so now there's discussion about who's the most appropriate board to be responsible for this type of project and other projects, other development projects. And so we have, similar to the finance team meeting, we've established we call it development team meeting. So it's the chair of the select board, chair of the planning board, myself, the director of planning, the community development director, and the public works director. And so we've been meeting similar to finance team once a month, and that's one of the questions that we're working on answering, is coming out with more information about sort of process and how the two boards can work together. And that's something that we anticipate talking about at a future select board and planning board meeting. The way that this article is written is that that the funds could not be expended unless the town receives the grant. So you actually saw that when we asked for funding for the Ellis Walker property. There was a request for funds, and we had to have it passed at town meeting, but there was also an application pending for a federal grant to purchase the property, and so we were not allowed to move forward with any of that, but we had to have the authorization in place so that the grant could be accepted. And so luckily we did get that grant and we were able to move forward. This is written similar, so that it wouldn't be spent unless we were to get the grant. And the director of planning can explain in more detail all of the scope of that grant and how it was, what's included in it. But as you know, this is, as folks said in the beginning of this meeting, it is a very big project, and so it requires multiple levels of design and work before construction. And so the grant is funded. I can't speak to all the details of it, but it does move the project forward. I did want to clarify that the Section 1, it is true that we are working, we have a MassWorks grant. We actually have several grants from the state working on Section 1. Section 1, though, that project is much bigger than the BWALT Trail. It's a whole new intersection at Route 9 and Otis. And we have applied for some additional funding, which we should hear potentially as early as this week on that additional funding. But happy to answer any questions that I can, and would definitely encourage you to invite Jenny Gingras to your meeting.
Yeah, I mean, I think
We
we were
would be
planning
there.
because we had the zoning article at number
Oh,
14,
yeah.
currently 14.
Makes sense.
Yeah, Josh had already emailed her, so.
So we will have her here.
Great. The next one is swimming pool repairs and the pool pack rooftop unit, which is, again, was on the annual town meeting warrant. So I think you remember that we actually passed over that article, and that was because when we received the bid, it was higher than we had anticipated, and so we were advised that a fall rather than a spring bid opening would likely yield a lower number. So we've gone back out to bid, and that bid is due, I believe, the first week in October. The assistant town manager, along with the recreation director, has done a lot of work and has reached out to many other communities and has a whole presentation that they'll be presenting to the select board on Tuesday night in terms of the model, more details about the model, some adjustments that have been made to the previously proposed model. So again, I think that they would want to come here and share that with you as well.
So is that best done through Jen and Rec, or is there?
So it would be Jen and Kim
And Ken?
would come. Yeah.
Okay, because I did reach out to Jen, and she said that she would be grateful if the DPW could be included as well. Obviously, that wouldn't be Kim.
Yeah. So
Because at a rooftop.
So Jen reports to Kim, which
Yep.
is why they're working together on it. But yes, the Public Works is also involved because they would oversee that actual construction work, and the rooftop unit is on there as well. So Jen can speak to the programming once the pool is complete. Chris could probably speak to more details around the actual physical work being done.
So we floated the 2nd and the 8th, I believe, were the options, and she said she was available for, Jen was available for both, but she wanted to see if we could coordinate with Chris as well, or DPW. So
It's Prashant.
So if she's available for both, maybe we'll just see if either one works for Chris. Yeah. So it looks like it would be the 2nd or the 6th.
6th, I'm sorry, 2nd and 6th.
If you want to see if one of those will work for Chris. And I guess we probably need to also check with Kim.
It sounds like Kim's part of it as well, yeah.
Right.
So you,
Good to include both and see which one is
Wait a minute.
suitable
So-
for both.
we think the bid opening is the 2nd, so I don't know if that influences when you want to see them.
I would
but-
love to try and get them the 6th if we can see if that would work for Chris and Kim. Maybe we can recommend that after the bid opening would be nice.
Well, there are meetings at night anyway, but yeah.
Right, but if they
That's
just
okay.
opened
It
it an
gives them
hour
a chance to
ago,
react
right,
and look at it.
then they can be a little
6
bit
sounds
more
better.
prepared. Yeah,
That's
great.
fine.
Bid opening being when you open the bid, not when you are open to getting bids, right?
correct. When you
Right,
open,
when we open the
Okay.
bid, yeah.
Find
and
out
look into
all the magic numbers.
Yeah.
but
Okay,
I'm
so-
gonna guess that Chris is not the sort of guy who wants to open it and then tell you what he thinks about it. I have a feeling that Chris wants to really review that first before he tells us.
I would agree with that.
It's nice to have a little time to digest
Right.
it and,
Yeah.
yeah.
So,
Great.
okay.
Prashant, you can follow up with
I
that
can
then?
follow up
Okay,
on that.
thank you.
So the 6th, good if they
I
can
guess
come.
I should make a note.
I'll copy you on my note
So
to
then
my
maybe
response
we
to
want
Jen.
try and do planning on the 2nd.
Yeah, I would want
If
to
we
do
could try,
both of them
yeah.
together.
Well, and
Okay.
so, like I said, Josh already emailed her,
Okay, so
and so
we'll
I
say-
can follow up and see.
Yeah, we only have 3 more meetings before we have to close our book.
Yeah, I was gonna ask what the date is that you,
The 9th.
oh. Oh, I thought we had another, okay.
No, because the Monday after that is a holiday. It's Indigenous / Columbus Day.
Right.
So, and then we would have to have it done into the printer, probably by that Tuesday or something anyway, to get them for
Okay.
the following Monday.
Select board's meeting on the 14th, and I had thought that they would be able to vote support, but, and then
Yeah,
get
I
it
don't
into the
think
book, but,
Oh.
Oh,
Wasn't
on
sure.
Tuesday night? Well, that
The 14th.
that
14th.
might be possible. We could, if we can check with Curry. I can check with Curry and see whether the meeting's Tuesday.
Well, and they
now.
don't have any
no,
comments
you
though
move-
either, right? Like
no,
theirs
the-
is just a quick.
No,
vote
but I'm
of
saying the
two.
fall town meeting is
Yeah.
Tuesday night this year, not Monday.
Yes.
right.
So probably we could throw those in Wednesday
Okay.
and get it done.
I think that,
I'll check with
I was just
Curry.
thinking their comments are easy to get into.
Yeah,
'cause
yeah,
It's
yeah.
not like there's
They're-
proof.
they're
of
just
anything,
putting
it's
in
just
votes.
the vote, yeah.
Their votes are easy. I had to get up a calendar.
Here.
So, town meeting's on the 21st, right? And we can't meet on the 13th, so we have to vote our book as is. We can obviously ignore with the changes for the select board votes, right?
Okay.
On the 9th, we would approve the R&R. And I can check with Curry if we got them on Wednesday midday, right? Because that would give the 15th, if we got the book,
Just the first
can they
one.
have it printed and delivered to the high school by the 21st? Because they can deliver it Tuesday morning to the
Okay.
high school. So I think
Okay,
it's likely to work, but why don't I
yeah, we can.
contact
confirm.
Charlene and make sure and not have them, it's a smaller book than
Right.
the big one.
I really like how you've just maintained responsibility for this.
Oh,
and I
yeah,
don't
I
have-
forgot. I don't have to do this. Maybe
No.
she can.
Walter's keeping it.
Too used to doing the book. Anyway.
All right,
I'm not
Yeah.
arm wrestling him for
But
the book.
we also have a new admin to work with.
yes, yeah, yeah.
So that that could be a little interesting for her too, right? Because it's first time doing it.
Yeah, I think she'll pick it up quick, so.
Okay.
By quick, you mean one day. Because
One
that's
day.
the amount of
Yeah.
time she has.
Well, yeah, I guess we could have everything kind of done and then just get the Tuesday night votes added in.
That's what I was thinking. We can just, all theirs is popping in the vote counts.
Right, and there's only 14. It's not like the
Yeah,
annual town meeting.
Well,
There's
and
so
they
many
may take-
articles that takes.
they may take some of their votes on
Early.
the 30th, but,
Yeah.
okay,
Well, you can keep planning on that.
great, thank you.
All right.
Article 8.
Yep.
So Article 8 is a request, and I actually misspoke about this at the select board meeting, so I'll clarify on Tuesday, but I had thought that the 300th anniversary committee was appointed by the town moderator and established by town meeting. And doing lots of research about it, it was established by town meeting. The 275th was established by town meeting, but then ultimately became the 300th, which was established by the select board. So I did talk to John, and essentially, if we were to continue with this, the select board would establish a 250th anniversary of the American Revolution committee. And then the request but that's before town meeting, is to take the remaining balance that's in the Westborough Spirit Committee gift account and put it into a gift account for this new committee in order to celebrate the anniversary of the American Revolution. So that's the article. There's
Does that
about
mean
$32,000.
The
in
select
there.
board has to establish the committee still, and so that has to happen before we would vote the article, I assume.
So they'll establish the committee, and then they'll have to establish the gift account that it would be transferred into.
Are there any limits in terms of where that money could go from a transfer? Could it conceivably be sent back to free cash, or?
I think there were gifts.
Yeah, I don't know that I honestly don't know all the uses for it.
Yeah.
Originally, the money was raised for the 300th anniversary, and then town meeting voted to put it into the gift account for the Spirit Committee. I don't know that you can do. I don't know if your options expand beyond a gift account, what you could use the money for. I doubt it could be closed out to free cash.
That was meant as just sort of an aside, because we also have the 4th of July party. Like, I guess there's other things that could be supporting as well.
Yes.
And I say that only because I don't have any visibility to what the 250th is going to look like. So I don't know where I feel most comfortable about how we would spend that money.
Like, you could use it to fund the block party for the
The block
next
party,
10
yes.
years or something.
Exactly. I guess I would just love to know what the options are, if not the 250th. And if the 250th, what does that mean?
Yeah, so we can look into it, because it's a good question about how we could transfer the money and get back to you. I will say, if you have a chance, I would encourage you to go. Massachusetts, this is a huge celebration that's actually already started across the state. For this anniversary. There's a whole website dedicated to it that's put on by, I believe it's the Massachusetts Department of Travel and Tourism. There's grants available. They're very much encouraging communities to participate in the celebration. So at least then you'll have a better idea of what other communities are doing and what this is.
And what
Yeah,
kind of party we could really have.
It sounds to me like
History
somebody else is...
enthusiasts from all over the country and even some parts of the world are coming to events for this.
I also just heard somebody say that somebody else is throwing a party. That,
Yeah, true. I don't know what we would do in town specifically. Ourselves to do that, but I guess that the committee could explore.
That's what the committee would do, yeah. Yep.
All right.
Thank you.
Article 10. It's the home rule petition.
Yes, so the select board held a public meeting in order to get input from folks on this particular article. That was last week. Essentially what this article does is it increases the required number of signatures for a citizen's petition to put an article on the warrant at an annual town meeting from 10 to 50 signatures. It's something that the select board has heard a lot about from the community over the past couple of years. And the 50 threshold is what has passed in other community, or one other community that we're aware of. The board has not had a lot of discussion since the meeting last week. I would say the majority of folks that were there were talking about higher numbers. Not that everyone agreed with that, but there was, so the board needs to figure out on Tuesday night what they want that number to be.
I'd say I attended, and the majority certainly was in favor of it, and there was a mixture of some feeling, but I would say a lot of people proposed larger numbers, but there were some people who thought 50 seemed about right.
Right.
Seemed.
What's the fall town meeting one?
Is the fall 100 or 50?
100.
100.
Yep.
Okay.
Article 13.
Article 11.
That's you.
Yeah.
So
We
that
happen to
means
have John
before the
here.
warrant closes, they'll make a choice on what they're gonna propose as the thing, although as we talked briefly at that meeting, someone at town meeting could propose an amendment as well, but we would initially vote on is whatever is in the warrant.
Right, and
Well,
I
we
think,
would
well, I
make
think
our
the moderator weighed in at that meeting and identified that there was not the additional wording that says, or such other number
Oh.
as town meeting may approve, and so I
Okay.
think that'll be part of the select board's
Oh,
discussion
that
as well.
could be a discussion too, so,
Yeah.
okay. So we'll wait till the warrant closes.
So Article 11 is the means-based exemption. This was passed as a home rule petition 3 years ago, I think. It's in its final year coming up in 2026. So we would go back. It has a sunset of 3 years, which is common and was put in there specifically because other communities that have passed this as a home rule petition have done similar. It moved through the legislature very quickly and has been very well received. Like in other communities, it's still a ramp-up thing. We're getting more and more each year, but this is bringing forward the same language, same home rule petition to be renewed through the legislature.
And what does it do?
Sorry, so it's a means-based exemption. So the state has a circuit breaker tax, income tax exemption, which has income and means threshold. It's got a threshold for what your income is, what the value of your house is, and what percent certain expenses can be of your income before you get a break on your income taxes. Now, the amount of the break fluctuates based upon what that percent is. The maximum now is $2,700. When we first adopted it, I think it was $1,200 or $1,400. So it has increased. The way ours is written is it is left up to the Board of Assessors, but can go up to 100% match. And that'll be based upon a given year how many applicants we get relative to what funds are available within overlay and what that goes to. Because if it continues to increase, we want to have some control relative to how much the town is going forward with. And we may choose to modify some language if the state continues to increase that tax break. But otherwise, ours also has a clause in it where the average single family now for the circuit breaker is now over $1 million at the state level. And we didn't think that the state level circuit breaker value was appropriate for Westborough. So what we wrote into ours was 10% over the prior year's average single family value, which is still a lot of money. But I think it gauges it more towards the Westborough. And one of the reasons we use this circuit breaker as a guide, as a test for it, like other communities, is because now you're giving an exemption to people who have proven limited means and need based upon that. Some other things that people have proposed that are broader in scope don't have means-based requirements. So the goal was to try to give people breaks that need them, okay, and not put the onus on our resources in doing that check. Because a lot of times people don't want to come forward, they're reluctant, their tax returns, all that. And here, they have to get the circuit breaker in order to qualify for this. So they're already giving the information to the state. Now, we also have many people who don't get the circuit breaker because they don't file state taxes. And now it's an opportunity for us to educate them and let them know if they don't make enough to file state taxes, the state will cut them a check for their circuit breaker, and then they can get an additional break off their taxes. So there's lots of good that goes on with this, and I feel pretty good about the program that we put forward, and hope that it will be supported again.
What does participation look like? Like how many residents are participating?
When do you have that information? I don't know off the top of my head. So the expectation was when we're up sort of in full swing, what we've gotten from, there's a
little bit.
the numbers are available as to how many people within our community
Thank you.
get the circuit breaker.
Just a little.
I think it's about
Do you
300
want to
people.
mute?
I muted her.
Thanks.
In other communities, they're finding after 5 years, they're getting about a 30% 30% return on that. We have a lot more renters. So renters can get circuit breakers. So renters would not qualify for this because they don't pay real estate taxes. So my guess is our ultimate percent will be lower than 30%. As I said, I think there's about 300 people that get the circuit breaker in town. So look at when we ran the numbers as potential tax impact, we were still within our existing overlay if we start to get closer to that 25% participation. And again, not everyone gets the full circuit breaker. Some people are getting, I think the average, last time I looked, they were getting about $1,100. So they were never, the average is not maxing.
What did you say, 27 is the, what did you say?
2,700 now
Yeah.
is the max, yeah. So,
Okay.
you know, there are people who are getting $50 for a circuit breaker.
Okay.
You know, so.
Okay, I have one more stupid question.
go ahead.
Sorry. In section 6, it says sunset ?
So, yeah, so right now we're doing homework to see if we have, I'd like to make the sunset 5 years instead of 3 years.
Okay.
But I want to know if it passed anywhere else. So we're
So
still.
it is not just a typo, there is
No,
an
no.
outstanding item there. I just
We're
wanted to be
gonna-
clear before we
We're
talk
going
about
to know
voting.
before town meeting as well as what fiscal year it would be in effect, unlike last time when I dropped the ball on that. So we'll make sure that we have that. But I would like the sunset to be 5 years. It's just less labor intensive. And again, because the amount can be controlled internally, I think that that makes a difference. And we treat it like any other exemption. It's paid for through the overlay. There are towns that pay for it through a shift in residential taxes, and I don't get it. You know, it's like just like every other overlay. So every property owner that pays real estate taxes, commercial, residential, personal property, they all contribute to this.
So, big picture thing, people can apply for this state fund, they get, say, the $2,700. The, I don't know if the Board of Assessors, is that the right name, can decide, do they want to match it at half that or hold that or some percentage of that based on the amount of people they have and the funds they have. So then the person would get the state
So
circuit breaker plus some more money off their.
Well, the state circuit breakers off their income taxes. Has
Yeah,
nothing
so-
to do with their real
okay.
estate taxes, yeah.
Oh, they still have to pay the same.
Still have to
thing,
pay,
But
yeah.
in theory, they got $2,700 less.
And one of the great things about this is some of our other exemptions are somewhat limited
Yeah.
in the dollar amount. And so for those people where our taxes have increased in that dollar amount, whether it be the 17D, which is $700, or the 41C, which can go as high as $2,000, but if they have a $10,000 tax bill, right, and they can't afford it, this is an opportunity for them. We did write it in a way that they can get both. So we're able to help people that much further who are really in need. Those people who would max out at the circuit breaker would have a real opportunity to get a break and stay in town.
So the state's giving it as a reduction in your income tax.
Correct.
If you pay zero, do you get a check?
Yes.
Okay. How would the funds that the town would match, would that just be reduction of the tax bill?
Yes, we don't cut them a check.
Okay.
Yes, it only comes, all of our exemptions only go against their taxes. You know, even the senior work off, we don't cut checks for people. It's a
okay.
credit against taxes, always.
Oh, okay. I wasn't aware of that.
The only time they would get any sort of refund is if they've already paid their whole tax bill, and then they got the exemption, it would come back to them because they've already paid the whole.
They overpaid.
Yeah, they've overpaid.
Makes sense to me now. Thanks.
Yeah,
That
of course.
clarified it.
All right. So roadway acceptance, we already had emailed Chris. We do have easements for Harvey Building. We had asked Jenny if she wanted to speak to those unless you want to.
Yeah, so this is actually a request of the Metro West Rec. So just to backtrack, so the Harvey Building at 20 Phillips Street is owned by the town. It's been underutilized for many years. And we came forward to the select board a couple of years ago with a proposal to use that building to house a regional emergency communication center. And so we have been moving forward with that. So we are working, we actually are establishing its own district, so its own sort of governing structure. The governing board, though, is myself and the 2 other town managers, so we're doing this in partnership with Southborough and Grafton. And then we have an operations committee, which is all the chiefs from those 3 communities, and we have a finance committee, which is the finance directors from all those communities. But we have an architect on board. They've been on board for a little while, T-Gas, and we're getting kind of to the end of design and are about ready to, in the next several months, go out to bid for construction. And as you know, and as you might remember from the library project, sometimes there's a need for the select board to grant easements. Sometimes they're temporary, sometimes they're just construction easements, but easements for the project. And so we're getting to the point where we need to be ready to go to construction. And so this is just a request, just like with the library, general authorization for the board to grant easements for that property as needed for that project. And I should say that it's being funded completely through State 901 grants.
Oh, and the last one is planning. I forgot the last half of the planning, so.
Yeah, the 70 pages.
Yeah. All right. Well, then thank you for your marathon question answer.
Yeah, sure, no problem.
Awesome.
All right, so we still have a quorum. If there are any things we want to vote, it is also 9. Prashant just closed his computer. I feel like that was a hint.
I think with the warrant closing,
Yeah.
there were
it
so many
seems-
that it might be nice to have the details and the limited number. But we will have to, in addition to having
Thank you.
guests in October, have to vote
Right.
articles on the 2nd and 6th to get through.
I think we are going, yeah, but you're right, there's only 16, because there's 2 more that'll be on there, but I think we can vote them relatively quickly.
And we have the 9th too, theoretically, because
Right.
to close the book, so.
Yep.
And
Okay.
yeah, everybody's probably pretty shot tonight, and we've lost at least 3 of our people.
Right. So we do not have any minutes. Do we have any liaison reports?
Tonight.
I've reached out to Chris today morning, so I'm hoping I'll get some response pretty soon. I'll keep everyone posted. Yeah.
Well, in that case, we sort of already talked through our upcoming meeting dates. And we're to the point where
Monday at
somebody
6.
other than me has to.
Move to adjourn.
Bradley second.
Ahuja, yes.
Lumberg.
She said yes. Bradley, yes.
Lumberg, yes. Did say yes.
Is it
Oh, clap yes.
Leslie, yes.
O'Day, yes.
Oh, it is. We're adjourned. Thank you,
We're
Westborough
adjourned.
TV. And good night.
Okay.
Thank you.